Hey, what's up guys? It's Tip. Earlier this week, we received the first bit of information regarding Classic WoW in what feels like forever. The information came in the form of a Forbes interview with Warcraft executive producer J. Allen Brack and senior game designer Jeremy Feasel. The interview seems to have drawn a substantial amount of pessimism on the prospect of Classic WoW's future, so I figured I would take the time to make this video and give you guys my perspective on the new information. Let's begin by addressing a point that many people seem to have forgotten. Following the Classic announcement at BlizzCon, high-ranking executives of the World of Warcraft team participated in about a dozen public interviews with various magazines and news publications. Most of the information relayed in the Forbes interview is nearly identical to the information we've already received in the post-BlizzCon set. So if you're up in arms about a 2019 release date or Blizzard's openness to discussing non-Blizz-like changes, this was kind of already known. But if you missed those initial interviews and the Forbes article came as a shock to you, don't panic, because I made a video a while back on the post-BlizzCon set, so if you'd like to catch up on all of the Classic WoW information given to us thus far, you can check out that video linked in the description. But with that said, let's break down the Forbes article, starting with the heartbreaking "we're beginning that" quote. When asked if the Classic team had composed a task list of the work required to port Classic WoW's code onto modern infrastructure, J. Allen Brack answered with the three words stated above: "We're beginning that." This came as a disappointment to many in the community who had speculated that much of the technical element of the project had already been completed. Additionally, Jay's statement directly contradicted a supposed leak that claimed Classic WoW was already in a friends and family alpha. Regardless of what you believed previously, I think we can put the "it's coming sooner than you think" bogus to rest. After all, whenever Blizzard has been asked about a potential release date for Classic, the response has always been, "it's still early." Which brings me to interview highlight number 2. We announced Classic a little bit early. Most of the optimistic speculation I've seen regarding Classic's release date was built upon the notion that Classic would follow the announcement release cycle of any other WoW expansion. And because each Warcraft expansion was released approximately 1 year after its announcement, we could expect a Classic launch in November 2018. Jay's statement here candidly destroys that logic. According to Jay, WoW Classic was announced probably a little bit early to the community in order for Blizzard to partner with the community and collect the feedback required to determine the direction of the project. So as far as Classic WoW following any kind of prior release pattern, I think it's safe to say we're in uncharted waters here. Because Classic has been announced earlier than usual, we no longer have a release template to apply to this project. I know optimists are pretty upset with this statement's ramifications, but it's the second part of the statement that seems to have drawn the most controversy. People seem to be upset with the idea that Blizzard has opened the floodgates for massive change requests with this so-called community partnership. And to a certain extent, I can see merit in that point. Up until now, we haven't really received the defined design parameters for Classic WoW, so we're not really sure what changes are up for discussion and what changes are out of the question. I think it would really help if Blizzard officially released its design philosophy and approach for Classic through some kind of blog post, so the angst and divide that's been festering in the community can be diffused. However, I also believe that a partnership is the right approach, and as a gamer who's been frustrated countless times in the past with developers who made no effort at reaching out to their communities, this declaration by Brack is refreshing, and considering the size and reputation of Blizzard, it's also pretty darn impressive. But speaking of changes, my fellow no-change brothers might be pleased to hear that Jay's starting place with Classic WoW is to recreate the original 2004-2005 experience. Now technically, Jay contradicts himself shortly afterwards by stating updated character models are up for discussion, but I honestly think that was more of a bad example for his point than a hint at Blizzard's intentions. I'll be covering the updated character models debate in my changes video on Sunday, but let me just say, if you're freaked out about Jay's comments here, don't worry, because I think my video will put you at ease. It should be up Sunday morning, Pacific time. And now, for the final major takeaway, managing 2 MMOs is not something we want to do. The world has moved on. So the statement has caused a bit of an uproar in the community, and if you're one of the people who's outraged over it, don't freak out. That's not what he meant. Jay wasn't trying to say that Blizzard doesn't want to make Classic WoW. What he meant was Blizzard doesn't want to maintain 2 separate back-end setups for the same game. This assumption is confirmed later in the interview when he brings up the topic of management again, stating that, quote, "we're trying to run Classic WoW on what we think of as the modern WoW infrastructure." In other words, Blizzard would like to simplify the task of managing the technical side of each game by porting Classic WoW onto the modern setup. Again, we already knew this per previous interviews, so this should not come as a surprise to anyone. I think the outrage was caused by a simple misunderstanding. But that concludes the Forbes interview, guys. To summarize the takeaway points, number 1, Classic WoW will probably launch in mid to late 2019. Number 2, your feedback is important, so hit the forums if you have something to say. And number 3, hashtag no changes. But I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. And if you did, sub it up and stick around because we got more coming. This interview also covered some Battle for Azeroth news, which I thought was very interesting. So if you'd like to hear my opinions on that, I'll be posting a video on it in the next week. And for more Classic WoW news, content, and updates, you can follow me on my Twitter linked in the description. Have a wonderful day, fellas. And as always, tips out, baby.